Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. Today, Duane Toews reports from the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show in San Diego, where he catches up with Tracy Brunner, incoming president of NCBA, and Matt Perrier, president of KLA. Next, it's our weekly Kansas Soybean update, and then Duane is back at NCBA with Barb Downey, chair of the Kansas Beef Council. Next is our KFB Legislative update with Kent Askren. And we'll end with Duane and Mark Harms, a Kansas rancher on the Beef Council Revenue Committee. It's all coming up on Farm Factor. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment is brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Let's join Duane as he visits with Tracy Brunner, incoming president of NCBA.
Duane Toews joining you once again with Ag AM in Kansas, and while at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show in San Diego, California, an opportunity to catch up with Kansas born and raised Tracy Bruner from Ramona, Kansas, roughly, president-elect of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, joining us on the program. And Tracy, San Diego in January, a pretty good option for a lot of producers.
This is great, isn't it, Duane? They tell me that San Diego has the most stable climate and the smallest temperature variation of anywhere in the continental United States.
And we are good with that here this week. Down to business, Tracy. Here this is a meeting of a lot of different organizations around the cattle industry, NCBA being one of those. And you're set to take the helm of the organization as president as we head toward the weekend of the conference. As far as the organization itself, the cattle industry has seen some turbulent times this year, but some victories for the industry as well.
Well, we're coming off a very successful congressional session in the omnibus appropriations bill. At the end of 2015, we were able to get some wins, some inclusion of some items that were very important to cattlemen, or some tax credits that were included in that bill. The death of a country of origin labeling bill that was about to impose $1.1 billion in tariffs on us by our two best trading partners, Canada and Mexico, and we're happy to put that to rest. And then the dietary guidelines were finalized at the end of 2015, and we're able to keep sustainability initiatives and mention out of the dietary guidelines, and also make the inclusion of beef in a healthy diet also preserved in the dietary guidelines.
Obviously, cattlemen across the country have always said that we'll compete with anyone with our product, but competing with a level playing field is pretty important. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, the agreement's put together. We've got some ratification things to deal with yet, though. Well,
you're sure right there, Duane. And cattlemen took the lead, if you will, in so far as business interests in helping assure the signing of the negotiation of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And now we've got that big hurdle of getting it ratified in Congress. And so that's a top priority for National Cattlemen's Beef Association in the coming year, is the ratification of TPP. It would, as you say, level the playing field. We currently are at a disadvantage into one of our biggest and most lucrative markets, that of Japan. Our competitor, Australia, is enjoying only a 10% tariff rate, while we're paying 38%. TPP would lower that to the same rate for everyone within the agreement, and level our tariff with Japan's, and also decrease that tariff from 38% down to 9% over about a 15-16 year period. So additionally, it would gain us access to about 40% of the global economy.
Our thanks to Tracy Bruner, President-elect, soon to be President of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, joining us in San Diego. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Folks, stay with us. Duane will be back with Matt Perrier, President of Kansas Livestock Association.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas corn, with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome. Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Ag AM in Kansas, brought to you in part by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
We're back. Let's join Duane and Matt as they discuss some of the issues most important to today's cattlemen.
Duane Toews joining you once again in San Diego at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show. An opportunity to catch up with Matt Perrier, president of the Kansas Livestock Association. And Matt, one of the things that goes on is policy development, and those are formed around issues. Give us an idea of some of the issues that cattlemen are concerned about in San Diego this year.
Well, I think a couple of the main ones that we're going to be talking about this year is price volatility, price discovery to a certain extent, but the volatility of especially fed cattle and everything that goes along with that. And so that's going to be one of the issues that gets talked about as much as anything. Kansas Livestock Association also has a directive about animal ID for traceability that we'll be addressing as well. So those will be two big points this week.
That volatility, obviously, the cattle market this past year has been extremely volatile, and depending on the week that you sold it, it may have been good or bad relative to the weeks around it. But looking at some of the reasons for that, I think everybody would just be glad if we'd kind of settle down whatever that price point is.
I think so. I mean, we don't like wild swings in the beef industry, but truly, historically, we're not unaccustomed to those. Today, they're probably wilder, or seem to be, just because we're in such a higher price value than we've seen in past decades. But we're not opposed to volatility. What we want as KLA, and I think as NCBA, is to make sure that everybody has a fair chance to get in on those markets. Some of these markets, with the high-frequency trading and some of these that are going on at the Chicago Mercantile, has made it for the fundamental traders out here in the country almost impossible to get in or to get out of those markets when they're moving that quickly. And that's what we want to address, and make sure that everybody has a fair and equitable chance to participate in those markets.
You referenced some of the animal ID and traceability issues as well that'll be addressed, and I think most people just want to make sure that we don't become burdensome or slow down commerce.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. The last 15 years, we've had several different animal ID and traceability programs come our way. None of those have been perfect. They have had their good points, but because, for lack of a better description, they've all failed, I think producers out here in the country are fairly doubtful that what we see coming from USDA or whomever might be putting an animal ID program together is not going to work. I think we have to break that mold. I think that there is real value in identifying these cattle and proving to our customer where they've been all the way through, and that we do care and are very concerned with the raising and production of these beef cattle. I think we need to do it the right way. I think the industry needs to be highly and heavily involved, and I think we do have to take a fresh start and make this ID program work for us and not the other way around.
Well, our thanks to Matt Perrier, president of the Kansas Livestock Association, joining us in San Diego during the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, talking about some of the issues of importance to the industry. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Next up is this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. We're joined now by Jim Sutter, who is the CEO of the U.S. Soybean Export Council. And Jim wanted to talk about some of the recently released data that came out on soybean exports. And probably the big thing there is what gives the U.S. soybeans a competitive advantage on what we've seen in this data.
Obviously, we had a very big crop this year, bigger than most of us had expected, given all the weather issues we were hearing, but the crop turned out to be very large. U.S. farmers, while they've just grown a very large crop, are not all that anxious to sell the crop right now, because prices are certainly not what they were a couple of years ago. Farmers are doing what they can to hold back, to wait for higher prices, as farmers normally do, and at the same time, we have Brazilian farmers who are benefiting from the fact that the U.S. dollar is so strong. Their currency's lost 34% versus the U.S. dollar year to date, and so they're not seeing low prices. They're, in fact, quite anxious to be selling their crops. So they've taken their stocks down to record low levels with the past crop year they've marketed, and they're already starting to market their coming year crop. So all that said, I guess the bottom line from that is we've got tough competition in the export markets, and U.S. farmers have always shown that they can compete with the best of them, and I believe that the U.S. will continue to be a very, very competitive supplier of soybeans to the world market, and the world market likes the U.S. crop. Our organization, our U.S. Soybean Export Council, needs to make sure we're promoting U.S. soy around the world. We got plenty available to sell, and we're just going to make sure we're getting out there and telling the good news.
It is the off season for us, the prime growing season for Brazil, and being able to say, here's the product, here's the proof on paper of the quality that we see there too.
That's what we really have to be promoting and advertising to the buyers around the world, and that's what our team is doing.
Is that a harder job or an easier job now?
I would say it's easier in that we have plenty of supply available. We have good news in terms of the quality, so that's the good news. The more difficult challenge is the Brazilians and the Argentinians are also anxious to be selling their crop. So we see plenty of export competition. So that makes it a little more challenging. The other good news is we're selling into a market where demand is growing. We are seeing worldwide, with these lower prices and with economies around the world benefiting and getting a little better, we are seeing good demand growth. USDA reported that the last crop year we had record demand growth for soy worldwide. They've taken that projection down for this coming year. I'm optimistic that that will prove to be too low and that we'll see, in fact, higher demand. So we are selling into a market that's growing.
That is Jim Sutter, who is the CEO of the U.S. Soybean Export Council. He joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. After the break, Duane visits with Barb Downey, chair of the Kansas Beef Council.
Biodiesel made from sustainable resources is diversifying our fuel supply. This year, biodiesel will displace over 1 billion gallons of fossil fuel nationwide. It's making our economy stronger and our communities healthier. It's working here and across America. Get biodiesel going in your community. Visit americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Thanks for staying with us. Now let's join Duane and Barb Downey.
Duane Toews joining him once again with Ag AM in Kansas, and while in San Diego at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, a chance to catch up with Barb Downey from Kansas, chair of the Kansas Beef Council for the state of Kansas. But Barb, you certainly got some additional responsibilities while you were in San Diego as well.
I did. They really, some opportunities presented themselves, and I am fortunate to have been able to take advantage of them. I am now a member of the Beef Promotion Operating Committee for the Federation side. That is the entity charged with appropriating funds, checkoff spending funds. And I'm also the NCBA Region 7 Vice President from the Federation side, and of course National Cattlemen's Beef Association, NCBA, the policy arm of the cattle business.
We think about those opportunities. They don't always come up and come around to have an opportunity to step into some of those leadership roles. It is a big step, though, and a time commitment. Those individuals that serve on those committees take that job very seriously.
They do, and it's really important to all of us as cattle producers, both checkoff side and policy side. They affect, whether we realize it or not, what we do day to day and the climate that we operate in as cattle producers.
There always are those individuals that maybe don't understand that there is a delineation between policy and the checkoff side. Certainly they mirror each other because of the ultimate goal, obviously, is to represent cattlemen and the beef business as best they can, but there is separation.
There is very clear and definite separation of those, and that was defined by the 1985 Act and Order that created the National Beef Checkoff. And we do a really good job as an industry in utilizing the complementary functions of both organizations while maintaining a very clear and definite firewall so that we are using those producer dollars absolutely properly.
And we think about the ultimate goal of that from the checkoff side is promotion, consumption, research, all those kinds of things that ultimately drive the individuals out there to desire the product that we raise.
Yes, we do. It's a very well coordinated effort. It's what seems to be a large amount of money, about $39-40 million. But at the end of the day, when you look at the funding our competitors or maybe our antagonistic entities have, it's a drop in the bucket. And so I am very appreciative of the job that has been done by other cattlemen and women before me in making sure that we are really using those dollars in a very effective manner. And I hope to continue to really watch those dollars very carefully for all of us.
Our thanks to Barb Downey from Kansas, joining us at the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in San Diego. Jamie, we'll send it back to you, more Ag AM in Kansas.
Don't go away. Up next, Kent Askren brings us this week's KFB Legislative Update.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
I'm a patient of Kansas Regenerative Medicine in Manhattan. I had stem cell therapy in my hips and my left knee. My wife and I both are patients. We went down there the same day in November. Since then, my hips are feeling a lot better. I can work now most of the day if I want to. And before, if I worked in the morning, I was done in the afternoon, or if I worked in the afternoon, I was sure enough done for the rest of the day.
Welcome back. Up next is this week's Kansas Farm Bureau Legislative Update.
We've been working on testifying, tracking several water bills this session. Some of them deal with things like the multi-year flex account program, which has been popular with many of our members, making it a little more flexible and easier to use. The Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, expanding that to not only deal with water quantity issues, but also water quality, and to help address some of the sensitive environmental areas of our state. Failure to submit an annual water use report is another bill that has been going through the legislature, would increase some of the penalties and actually even provides for some short-term suspension of water rights if that doesn't happen. What it looks like now is we may have the what we kind of refer to as the water mega bill developing that came out of the Senate last week, is now being rolled over into Senate substitute for House Bill 2059. It started out as a surface water fee bill, and it will still have some of those provisions in it, but in addition to that, there have been some exemptions considered for allowing liquid fertilizer to be injected into irrigation systems from surface water storage facilities without being required to have a chemigation permit. So we're keeping a close eye on that. Those are really the highlights of the bills. We'll be following these most closely up until the close of the session.
Hope you enjoyed this week's legislative update. Stay with us for Duane's conversation with Mark Harms.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. Let's join Duane and Kansas rancher Mark Harms.
Duane Toews joining us once again from the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in San Diego. A chance to catch up with Mark Harms from Lincolnville, Kansas. And Mark, you sit on the Revenue Committee for the Federation. Can you explain a little bit about how that happens and what that particular committee does?
Okay, so the Executive Committee is basically the Federation policy sides both. It's a collective group of about 30 members, and a lot of the issues we discuss will come up for vote to the general membership session during the business session on either Friday or in committee meetings on Friday, and the entire membership on Saturday. In the revenue seat that I serve for Kansas on the Federation side of the Executive Committee, any state that collects at least 10% of the total revenue from the beef checkoff gets a seat on the Executive Committee, and I serve that position for Kansas. Some interesting things that are coming out of that would one of those be the Research Council. Executive Committee on Monday passed that we would bring up to the membership that we will have a more insightful group and in-depth look to make sure that the dollars that we're using for research through the checkoff are not duplicative or redundant to other research that's currently running, and just another opportunity to make sure that we're using our dollars effectively.
We think about the opportunities to do so at a meeting like NCBA and the Cattle Industry Convention. There are a lot of other subcommittees, if you will, that have an opportunity to evaluate the entire industry with their own individual segments. I understand that consumer trust maybe is something that you get to sit down on as well.
Yes, that'll be a committee. So last summer at the summer conference, we did adopt the new long-range plan, which will serve our organization in conjunction with policies for the next 5 years. And we want to make sure we're all on the same page and that we focus to actually meet some of the goals and objectives that we've set forth in that long-range plan. And out of that, new groups were developed within committee structures of the Federation, and consumer trust is one of those. And our goals within that group will be obviously to address our ultimate consumer and to make sure that they know that we are have their best interests in mind.
And certainly the beef checkoff program in the past has done things to try and alleviate consumer concern and educate them. It's not something new, but maybe a chance to be more focused.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that it's pretty easy to fall victim to the fact that we're doing our best out in our own operations at home and in providing good stewardship not only for the livestock but for the land as well. And consumers today want to know that we're doing that, and we have to be able to verify that. And so keeping that trust, as the committee is named, is vitally important.
Some people may not understand the correlation between a happy consumer and a consumer that will purchase your product. We rely on them to purchase those products that we produce.
The one thing I think we always need to be aware of is that consumers have told us they're willing to pay a premium for beef. It is their preferred protein. Whether economies change or market prices, as we saw last year, beef prices at the retail level too hit new highs. We want to make sure they're still interested in our product, that we're still a product of choice to feed to their families as a protein source. And so making sure that they understand that we're doing our best to provide their families safe, nutritious beef is top of the mind.
Our thanks to Mark Harms of Lincolnville, Kansas, joining us in San Diego during the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show in San Diego. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor. We're here every Tuesday on Ag AM in Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. To see this show and past episodes of Ag AM in Kansas, go online to agamandkansas.com.